Thank you, Bill. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to what is the first of a triannual series of webinars and workshops that I'll be hosting, covering the various pain points that are specifically around operations and manufacturing. This particular topic is relevant not just to manufacturing realms, but every form of business. And hopefully everyone on the call today, whether you're in operations, manufacturing, trade services, whatever business you're in, we'll have some good takeaways from that. Let me just move here. So just a quick organization thing about how we're going to work today. This is a panel discussion. I'll introduce the panelists in a moment. Looking for active, interactive Q&A sessions. So please don't hold back on asking questions. Don't save them till the end. Absolutely looking for your interactive participation, and your feedback is more than welcome. You should know that we are recording this for future distribution. So if you need to come back to it or you want to share it later on, it will be available. I'm going to go through this brief slide presentation, hit on a couple topics. It'll take about 10 minutes, and then we'll get into the panel discussion. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button, which is in the middle of your Zoom screen. Bill will be monitoring that, and he'll be feeding questions from the audience out to me, and then I'll organize things with the panelists. So for those of you who don't know about Empirical Solutions, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. What you should take away is that we are a team of professionals that have all been in industry, have a lot of experience, and come to the consulting practice with a real wealth of backgrounds. And one thing that's common about all of us is that we're passionate about using the things that we've learned to help the small to mid-sized businesses. Our offerings are on the sides of sales and marketing, operations, finance, and HR and talent acquisition. So today we'll be kind of mixing the HR and talent acquisition piece with the operations piece, but we are a full service bouquet consulting firm. And just a little bit about me, for those of you who don't know who I am. I joined the company about 6 months ago. I have 30 plus years of international experience in operations and manufacturing. A big portion of my career was with a large British company where I built, oversaw manufacturing and operation facilities around the world, as well as developed a global operational excellence program. So 2017, when I left that firm and got into consulting, I found it extremely enjoyable and successful in bringing those experiences to small to mid-sized businesses, and that's what I focus on. A lot of my work, aside from the normal operations related things, is bringing process to chaos. And I find that I'm able to really help businesses that need getting things organized, getting themselves set straight. I'm a good resource to tap into for that. A little bit about our panelists today. Karen Butts is on the call. She is a partner also with ECS, a long history of experience as an HR generalist, and she is the top recruiting person for ECS as well. So she's going to bring both an HR perspective and a recruiting perspective to our discussion. Tony Ryan is somebody that I've known for a while. He's a mechanical assembler at PacBro. I thought it was really great that Tony took the time to join us today, giving us a view from his perspective about what he in particular, and also maybe his generation, are valuing in the workforce, and what things that motivate them and what things that don't motivate them. And we'll tap into Tony's thinking. And then of course we have Jay Strunk. Really happy to have Jay on board. It's not written well here in his description, but the biggest portion of his career was really in organizational talent development. His experience with Southco, Pep Boys, PP&L, as well as his work with the school district and the Career and Technology Center. So Jay is going to be able to give us not just the things that young people coming out of school are looking for, but also the other end, the baby boomer end, the retention piece, and how things have changed, particularly around the pandemic. So why are we having a panel discussion? Well, giving you death by PowerPoint for 45 or 50 minutes about a topic as relevant as this didn't feel as honest as it would be to get a diverse conversation going. So that's the main reason for the panel discussion. Clearly, the pandemic has put us in a market that's changing, and lifestyle and health options are a big deal. And we want to touch on that and hear what all three of our panelists have to say. Just some trends, a little bit of a brain dump here about things that are just kind of happening. Again, I'm not going to read all of them, but I do want to point out three that I think that are important. Labor shortages. I think everyone on the call here knows that there are labor shortages in every aspect of the market, from McDonald's to trying to find executives at every level. And so when you're in a labor shortage, it forces us to be creative and find different ways to attract that. And that goes to the next bullet here, which is, the buyer's market versus the seller's market. We're on the wrong side of the supply and demand curve, huge demand for talent and limited supply. And that touches on a lot of these other bullets that are listed here. And I think hopefully we'll be getting into most of them during our discussions. Other things that are driving talent decisions, again, a little bit more of a brain dump. Most of you will probably know about a lot of these things. The three things that I think I want to touch on here. The first one, people want to work for a company whose values align with their own. And I think it'll be great to hear what Jay thinks about this, Tony and Karen. I think they all have different perspectives on how values fit into things. The middle, people want to have a voice. It's very true that today, giving people the opportunity to participate, stakeholder engagement is key to success. And your ability to have people who work for you understand that and be involved will help retention, and be able to advertise that will probably help recruiting as well. We'll tap into Karen for that. And people want to learn and grow and develop in their careers. It's not always easy to do, but it's important to try to show people a path forward, whatever that path might be. So we'll talk about that. What will you leave this webinar? Well, hopefully you're going to leave this webinar with unique understanding or validation of what you've already been doing or thinking about. Hopefully you're going to take away some new ideas, and the importance of acquisition as well as retention, right? So we're all focused on trying to get people because that's the immediate need. But if we turn a blind eye to the retention piece, it just creates a different problem. So we want to be able to make sure that we balance thinking about acquisition as well as retention of people. I'm going to leave this up for just a second. This is just a little bit of contact information. If you want to reach out to me about anything regarding this webinar, feel free to do that. Or if you want to talk about, operations or interests for your company, I'll be happy to talk about that. Specifically around HR and retention, you can talk to Jason Fisher, who's the managing partner at ECS that handles that part of the business, or Karen herself. So that's our contact information, and certainly happy to share that offline as well. So with that, I'm going to stop the share the screen and jump into some discussions. So Karen, I thought I'd start with you. That's okay, put you on the spot. Just curious if you can elaborate on the types of trends of things that you're seeing as you're out there doing recruiting, as some of the other people on your team are doing recruiting. What are some of the trends that you're seeing from new hires? What are people saying to you, offline with the employers not hearing, that they think is really important to them making a decision?
Sure. So I think there are several things going on here, right? And one of the largest trends that we've seen for a variety of different reasons is just this aspect of flexibility. So not necessarily always remote work, which I know is tough in some industries, primarily the ones we're
Right.
talking to today.
Yep.
But folks want the flexibility. So they want to be able to either job share or work part-time, or maybe have an option to work part of their job remotely, at some points. So that's, I think, first and foremost. The second thing that folks are really looking for is they want to come work for an organization that they can be proud of and that shares their own personal values. And that all comes around branding. So there's been a huge shift in employers spending time to make sure that they're branded properly. 75% of your candidates are going to go and check out your company before they even apply. So it used to be maybe, you'd apply and then you'd get your interview and you'd go do your research. Now folks aren't even applying until they do the research on your company and make sure that it matches both from a flexibility and a work-life balance standpoint, and also what they value in their careers. The third biggest thing I would say that folks are looking for right now are transparency in career opportunities. So they want to understand, if I come and work for you, what is going to happen in a year or 2 years from now? What sort of advancements am I going to have? So having those sorts of programs and conversations internally that you're able to share with candidates when you do actually talk to them, I think is huge. So there's lots of other ones too. There's much more technology going on right now in terms of recruiting, recruiting on social media. There are companies that are posting their jobs on TikTok and doing videos, and folks have chat bots, which they have a 90% click-through rate when you have a chat bot, so somebody to help a person fill out an application. So there's all sorts of technology also going on, but I think some of those just flexibility and transparency with candidates are the biggest things I'm seeing.
So just for clarity for the people on the call, can you just elaborate for a minute on what you mean by branding? You just, so that everyone understands kind of what you specifically mean about branding and how it's important to them in terms of attracting people.
Sure. So branding in terms of employment is making sure that you have a consistent message on all of your platforms, whether that be social media, your website, any advertising you do, on what your company does and what they stand for. It doesn't have to be flashy, it doesn't have to, you don't have to get a marketing company involved, but it needs to be a consistent message that really talks to who you are as an organization. Having even employees come on and do videos and talk about what it means to work at the organization is huge and super helpful. Just making sure that somebody knows exactly who you are and who you stand for and what your goals and vision are of an organization, and having that be a consistent message throughout all of your different platforms.
Great. Tony, let me jump to you for a minute. So based on what you just heard Karen say, knowing that you just recently been in the job market, does what she's saying resonate with you? And can you give us a little of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely looking for a position in today's market in the manufacturing field has been it's pretty competitive, but it's also, I didn't necessarily have many large issues with applying.
Specifically the value piece. I mean, was that important to you? I mean, when you were looking at jobs, that it's not just about the paycheck, right?
Right.
That it was more than that. Can you elaborate on your recent experience of what made you choose one job over another?
Right. So values was definitely something that I just recently learned the importance of. I haven't worked a lot of positions that I could definitely say that I was extremely satisfied with the culture. And this most recent one, the position I have right now at Pac Pro, is by far the best culture I've ever had, and I really didn't even know that that was possible.
And what is it about the culture, just briefly, that you like? What is it that they're doing that's keeping you motivated?
Well, definitely the pay is big. The benefits are important, but the atmosphere, I mean, it really starts with the leadership in the company. I feel like um, my current boss is a very direct person, but he's also one of the guys, and he makes sure that his people are well taken care of, that we have the things that we need. And that's good to see, because it inspires confidence to not have to worry about, oh, is he busy? Um, am I going to upset somebody by asking a question right now? It's really important to have like rock solid leadership that inspires confidence in the people that work below them. I think that that's pretty big.
Great. Jay, over to you for a second. This is right in your ballpark. How do you feel about what Tony's saying, a little bit about what Karen's been saying, and your experience with company culture?
Thank you. I think for a variety of reasons, company culture is more important than it's ever been. But more important than culture is the individual values that people bring with them. I think today, because we have moved from an employer kind of market to an employee market, people have choices. So they have choices about when they work, where they're going to work, how long they want to work, and more importantly, there's been a decrease in loyalty of how long they will stay. So people, by and large, to put it very simply, are looking for a place where they fit. Uh, and if you think about interviews in the past, we ask a lot of people about what they've done relevant to the work that we have, but we don't ask them a lot about who they are and what they're looking for. And more today, because we've moved to an employee-driven culture, it's been a disruption of power, frankly. People have more choices. That if we start getting to know the people we're talking to better and the people we have, and understanding what they're looking for in this world of work, what brings meaning to work, which has always been important to all workers of all ages, meaningful work, but to take that even more seriously and to begin to find people whose personal values match with our organizational values. Now, that also means that we even know what our organizational values are. And values is a bit of a psychological term here. It's a bit of psychobabble. But the question really becomes, what do we stand for? What do we believe in here? What do we believe in about people? What do we believe in about the nature of work? What do we believe in about what brings value to our shareholders? What brings value to our customers? What brings value to our people? And are we matching that? Are we giving people what they're looking for in that place to work? So as an example, I was talking to a friend of mine who works at CarMax, and they have problems getting service people in their service department, especially with younger people. They finally decided that people don't want to work weekends anymore. So guess what CarMax did? Their service department is no longer open on Saturday and Sunday. And historically, service bays have been hot places, sweatshops where you want to work. Guess what they did? They've air conditioned their service bays. So now it's Monday through Friday, and they've added flexibility to their scheduling and in terms of the service people. So they've matched what they've done with what the people are looking for in work.
And so a couple quick things on that. So one thing is, what I'm hearing you say is, we, as people looking to hire, need to work a little harder and not just look to collect resumes and get somebody to put a round peg in a round hole. We've got to do more about thinking about our environment, thinking about our way of working, and selling that as part of something to get retention. What I would think a lot of people on the CarMax example would say, what has that done to their business, right? They're taking 2 days out of a work week that was bringing in revenue, and in order to get people, they're now not doing it. What's the answer to that question, do you think? Is it
revenue is strong as it's always been, if not
really
stronger? Of course, the used car market is pretty hot right now too, with what they do. But they've not seen a decrease in their revenue because of that.
Okay.
In fact, they've seen an increase in production because the people are there when they want to be there, and they feel that there's this win-win kind of relationship. So they're working harder during the days when they are there. You get 5 good days of work with the 2 days off, rather than what you might get with forcing the weekends, and less people leaving.
Tony, you have a little bit of experience in this area, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
that resonate with you, what he just said?
Absolutely. I actually have a friend who works for CarMax as a service tech, and I mean, he loves it. And
Why?
they alternate. I mean, he has, first of all, I mean, the type of work as a service technician in a CarMax is fairly limited as to what you would do. So making the conditions for that workplace even better, as far as having extended weekends. I know that they alternate Fridays off, so every once in a while you have a 4-day week that's just guaranteed. Um, the pay there is incredible. And then also I can speak to the climate controlled workplace, because most of the positions that I've held in the mechanical field have been outside, and in the winters, in the middle of the summer, having a climate controlled workplace is incredibly valuable.
Karen, over to you for a second. The things that Jay was talking about, values and tying that into the branding thing you were talking about. Can you validate that from what you're hearing from people that you're interviewing?
Absolutely. I was going to follow up and say, I constantly have folks asking during a screening interview, well, what's the culture like there? And when I am bringing on a new client, the clients that have an easier time hiring people are the ones when I ask them, well, what is your culture? What do you value at the organization? The ones that can answer that, and even sometimes give me something that answers that, they are the ones that are the most successful in hiring, because they know who they are and who they stand for, and they're able to communicate that to candidates. And that is absolutely something that folks, it's not just, in the upper levels that I hire for, it's at all levels. They want to know, what's it like there? What's the culture? Am I going to fit in? Is there diversity? Is there flexibility? These are things that people are asking. And I think it's really important, in these times, for organizations to look inward. And if they aren't able to articulate what the culture is and what the vision is, start to talk to some of your employees. Use that as an opportunity to get with them and say, why do you stay here? What do you like about this organization? Or if you have someone that you've hired recently, why did you decide to come here? What was it that attracted you? And think about what you did to try to get that person into the organization. So look a little bit more inward before you go out and just say post a job, and make sure that you have all of those things tied up, instead of just going out there not really understanding who you are.
Okay, great. One thing I would add, so pre-pandemic, the values piece, I want to work for a company whose values and ethics align with mine, that I care about. This is highly, highly popular in Europe. In Europe, prior to pandemic, I can speak firsthand that hiring people, this was a big thing, and a lot of companies needed to do that. And pre-pandemic, it wasn't what we were doing here in the US, right? It was business as usual. And the pandemic has created such a shift that we're moving more towards, not deliberately probably, but moving more towards a European model of working, right? More value on time off, more value on flexibility, more value on the company vision that Jay talked about, right? About being able to articulate that is meaningful, right?
And if you look at some of the larger organizations and even medium-sized, what they've been doing recently, there are some organizations that have done more transactional type benefits, right? Increasing pay, increasing benefits. And then you have organizations that, and I can't remember which one it was, it might have been Nike, that just just shut down for a week this summer, which they had never done before. You
Right.
have Walmart, who's not going to open on Thanksgiving this year, which is huge. I called Indeed, the place where you actually post, a couple weeks ago on a Friday, and it just said Indeed is closed today. So I finally got my rep on Monday, and he said, oh yeah, once a month Indeed just gives us a random day off. We never know when it's going to be. They just give us a day off and the whole entire company shuts down. These are things that we've not seen before. And I'm hoping it's due to, these organizations actually talking to their employees and trying to find out, what is it that you really value? I'm not just going to throw more money at you if that's not what you need.
Great. Jay,
Chris, if I would, I want to take something you just said and present it from a different point of view for the listeners. You were talking about the European model and the US model. Fit with values has always been critical in American business. For the past 40 years, there's been research done to answer the question, what drives commitment and loyalty in an organization? And the answer has been the same for the past 40 years. It is match between what I believe in and what I stand for and what I think the company believes in and stands for. So the research was done by asking people, how clear are you on the organization's values? How clear are you on your personal values? And then they asked them, how committed are you to helping the organization achieve its objectives? And how loyal are you to the organization? They found that the highest score, the highest commitment and loyalty is when people are clear on their personal values and they are clear on the organizational values. However, what's interesting, when asked if you are clear on your personal values, if you're clear on the organization values, but not as clear on your personal values, does that drive commitment and loyalty? It doesn't. It's scored about the same as people who aren't clear on their own personal values and are not clear on the organizational values. But when asked, are you clear on your personal values, but less clear on the organizational values? Commitment and loyalty was almost as strong with the high highs, because people walking into an organization can feel what it's like to work here, and they know whether there's a match, and they can leave. Now, the difference has been over the past 10 years. 10 years ago, there weren't as many options. It is a buyer's market today.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
If I walk in, the same principles apply. My point in saying that to you, when we're moving to the model, not because we want to, because in my opinion, I'm a bit cynical here, because we have to. We've always talked about, oh, I believe in my people. I believe in my people. But I think in a lot of ways, it's been lip service, because we have moved to an employee-driven market where people have options. There is no option for the employee, for the employer anymore, but to pay attention to that stuff, or you're going to be constantly hiring. Because
I think
people can now leave.
And I think my point about the European model was that it was very deliberate, right? And that employers were doing the branding that Karen's talking about, and doing the promoting of values and recognizing that, I think, a little earlier than the things that we're just getting around to.
Oh, I agree with you, but I think that European society is more interpersonal. American society is more independent and competitive, and we're being forced, if we want to get good people and keep good people, to be more interdependent.
Agreed. Tony, question for you. So based on what you're hearing, right? There's the money aspect, there's the benefits piece, right? And then there's the value, the culture piece. They're all important, but I'd be interested to know, you've worked for a number of different companies. You mentioned that you worked outside, you worked inside. If you're a landscaper, you can't do climate control, right? There's nothing you can do. But so let's take that out of the equation. Where do you rank these types of things when you look at where you are now, when you look at what's going to keep you, right? What this company would be doing to keep you there? What are the things that are going to be important? How would you rank them? And then Jay, I'm going to come back to you about retention, because I'd like to talk a little bit about baby boomer versus the people coming out of school, and what we have to do to balance that from a retention standpoint. But Tony, over to you first.
Okay, so I think the first thing that I was looking for in a position looking in manufacturing was something that is scalable, so that the entry level was something that I was familiar with, but as I continue with the company, I'd like to continue to see progress. And I like that to be established pretty early, that there is a ladder to climb here.
Was that a question you asked in the interview process? Is that something that made you decide one company over another, that they convinced you or could show you a path forward?
I did mention it in the interview that I wanted to, try and find an employer that was, something that is going to put me outside of my comfort zone a little bit, force me to continue to learn new things. And I would like there to be new things to continue to learn. Is there more than one position for somebody like me in that company? Is there different areas on the manufacturing floor where I could be doing different things? There's the mechanical, the electrical, there's an entire machine shop and the CNC machines and lathes and mills and all sorts of stuff like that. So they established pretty quickly that there is a lot to learn. And that was one of the main things that pulled me into a manufacturing facility. One thing I wanted to mention was that had I had known that manufacturing and building of equipment was even a position, I was unaware of what manufacturing really was before, 8 months ago. I really didn't know. I thought manufacturing was take this thing, put it on this thing, and then put it on the conveyor and it goes to the next guy. That was my impression of manufacturing before I learned that this is it's a very serious thing. It's very in-depth. It's intricate. It's everything you could want to be as a mechanic and not have to come home really dirty every day. You can work on brand new equipment and, there's something to be said for that. And also people like you who enjoy doing the same thing. That's what I've found in the manufacturing facility that I'm in, is they're all people just like me who want to be there.
So what I hear you saying is you're motivated by being challenged.
Yep.
You're motivated by people acknowledging your value, right? You talked about your boss being one of the people, but keeping you there, right? And you're motivated by the fact that you see some path for yourself to be able to do more and earn more.
Right.
Right. If some company came to you tomorrow and offered you 50 cents an hour more, that's not a motivator to jump, right? Because these other things are more valuable than 50 cents an hour to you. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that correct?
That is, yep, that's correct.
Okay. I'm going to come to you in a minute, Karen. So Jay, back to you. So taking some of the things that you heard Tony talk about, how does that factor into your thoughts on retention, right? So we're talking about, we could be interviewing people that are just coming out of technical school. We could be interviewing people that have been in the job market for 25 years, and whether they, through furloughs or got laid off during the pandemic, and now they're looking for a new opportunity. I would think that their needs and desires are going to be slightly different. How would you advise people to be able to balance that?
I think there are differences, Chris. For the first time, we have 4 generations in the workplace. It's never happened before. And it's kind of fun to read books about generational differences. But what I really want to push, especially the listeners here, is I recommend that you look at the similarities between the people. There are 2. What's not changed over time, and I think this fits with what Tony is saying, is that people are looking for meaningful work. What has changed is the amount of patience they have in terms of how long they will wait before they leave and go somewhere else to find that meaningful work. What has changed is what meaningful work looks like. The younger generation wants much more fun, much more flexibility, much more sociability. I think we wanted that before, even with the boomers, but we put up with it if we didn't get it. And there weren't as many choices. So the one thing to focus on here is meaningful work has been critical in every generation. The other thing I want to talk about is quality of relationship with immediate supervisor. It has historically been the reason people leave jobs. If my boss cares about me, helps me grow, gives me feedback, especially recognizes my successes, I am more likely to stay and feel good. By and large, I think for the listeners, there's 4 things to pay attention to about what people are looking for, but it's been true in all generations. We want fair compensation, pay and benefits, but that doesn't keep us there. That just gets us in the door.
Let me interrupt you for a second. And I want to emphasize the word fair, right? So what you're saying is, from your perspective, it's not the guy who's offering the highest dollar always. There's more to it.
Yes. Yes. And the interesting thing is with the explosion of technology, the cell phones we carry around with us, it's easier to find out what other people are making today. What other companies are doing. So the knowledge that is shared with the worker, the worker's in control right now. The employee is in control in terms of knowledge. Meaningful work is the most critical of the four. Fair compensation, meaningful work. That means different things to different places and different people, but we got to figure that out and sort it out if we want to keep people. Development has been and continues to be critical. Again, we put up with it before. If we don't have time to get to your development or help you grow, people have less patience around that stuff, and they want people, especially their immediate supervisor, to be a coach, to be a mentor, not to just be a boss. Help me get better at what I'm doing, pay attention to me, care about me, help me grow, help me develop. And lastly is people have always been looking for respect. Now, my contention is that those four things have not changed: fair compensation, meaningful work, development, and respect. The difference is the shift, as I said before, from an employer market to an employee market. If I'm not getting those, especially those three things, meaningful work, development, and respect, I'll go somewhere else or find something else. There's a big gig economy out there that I can go to. There's part-time work that I can go to. My parents will take care of me for a while. I don't have to work in terms of that. So the patience is decreased. And I think what it's doing is forcing us as the bosses and the businesses to suddenly not just pay lip service to things like meaningful work, employee development, and respect, equity, and empathy on the job. But if we want to hire and keep good people, we got to take those things seriously.
Absolutely. Great.
And I think that's the struggle.
Tony, do you resonate with what Jay just said?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Okay.
would say one of the major reasons why I've left a lot of the companies that I've worked for is poor leadership.
That's interesting. You leave your boss, not your
Yep.
job.
100%.
Okay. Karen, going back to you, the branding piece. So everything we've been talking about for the last few minutes, the values and those changes, somehow we need to get that into our branding, right? Tony says, I didn't know what manufacturing was. That's a pretty enlightening, right? If you're a machine shop, if you're making an assumption that people understand the excitement of what they could be doing, right? And if you're not promoting that somehow in your branding about why is it exciting to work for ABC Machining or XYZ Manufacturing, then you're likely to get passed over because people don't understand it. How do you, am I on the right track there that needs to be part of the branding from your perspective?
Absolutely. And I want to add on to what Jay said is that another thing, and I think it goes back to the respect, is people want to fit. They want to feel like they fit in. And I don't think that has changed over the generations either. I think in today's world, fitting in is, and organizations need to think a little bit more about diversity and inclusion. You know, there's a lot more diversity out there, or a lot more open diversity out there than there was with some of the older generations. And folks want to know that that is acceptable and they will be respected and they will fit in. So I think anything that you can, in terms of your branding, having employee testimonials from diverse employees that show that it is an organization that values that and that you can fit in and feel comfortable and welcome. I think that is all huge. And I think it starts with an education. I mean, to Tony's point, he didn't know about manufacturing. Well, maybe we need to start a little bit sooner. Maybe we need to start in the grade schools and the high schools and get involved in the community and educating so people know that these types of jobs are an awesome career path for people that they might not know about.
Jay, interesting point she brings up. From your experience with Pottsgrove and with the technical school, are there opportunities for employers to come out and say, this is who we are, this is what we do, and kind of do a PR pitch, if you will, to give people, some young people anyway, an awareness of what the opportunities are?
Without doubt, without a doubt. And organizations are doing that at the technical schools coming out. And again, my recommendation to the owners of companies or senior managers who are on the line, this is not flag waving slogans that people are looking for. That doesn't last too long. It needs to be honest. It needs to be sincere. and it needs to be after the company has done some good soul searching and answered the question, who do we want to be? Who are we? What do we stand for? Because unless practice matches language, the people are going to read through that. In fact, you can see it in the presenters. You can see the difference between who's sincere and who's just talking the jargon. And I think for too many years, there's been too many companies that have just talked the jargon. We believe in our people. And if you do, people know that within the first 30 minutes of being there. And if you don't, that's true too. So before you go out and talk, don't go out and talk just because it's a great marketing thing. Go out and talk because you really believe that you have something to offer people. You have a good value proposition for people, and that it is worth their while to come and see how good you really are.
I want to take this opportunity to remind people that we welcome questions from the listeners. Makes it as entertaining and as useful as possible. So please feel free to put a question up if you have one.
And Chris, we have a question here. The question is from Lee here. There's a significant mismatch between supply and demand in the workforce. There are more opportunities than qualified candidates to fill them. Any thoughts on this challenge?
Bill, do you just elaborate? I mean,
it says, yeah, the question is, there's a significant mismatch between supply and demand in the workforce.
Yep.
There are more opportunities than qualified candidates to fill them. Any thoughts on this challenge?
Right. Okay. So let's start with you, Jay. I mean, that kind of goes to my question about unique ideas for attracting the labor, right? How do we conquer the supply demand curve and where it is right now?
If I'm the head of an organization and I have a good story to tell, I am bringing meaningfulness to people's work. I am focusing on their development. I am showing them respect and equity in the workplace. I'm providing flexibility and things like that. If I have a good story to tell and it's there, I would want to use my own people to go out as ambassadors to find people, to tell them about what a great gig we got going on here. And even if there's a reward or some sense of thing of get your people to bring in other people. And if you have a good story to tell, they should want to. I mean, if I got a good gig going, I'm going to talk about it to others. And if it's really true that it's that great, others are going to want to come. So one is, do we have a good thing going? Do we have a good story to tell? And if you do, how can you use your people to go spread that word? What would that look like? Because good news is attractive.
So it's again, it's back to your branding thing. It's a different. What we're saying is, Karen, got to get the word out. You know, what's unique about your business? What do you got going on? You're offering a competitive wage. You know you need to do that. That's baseline, right? If you're not offering a competitive wage, then you're getting overlooked from the beginning. But to separate yourself from all the people that are offering competitive wages and all the people that are offering, you know, reasonable benefits, right? You know, the affordable benefits for the company. What I'm hearing is the distinguishing piece is promoting the good story to tell that Jay just talked about, right? And getting it out there, whether it's using the mavens of your organization, right? The people that people listen to that are out there, or as Jay maybe offered up there, you know, is there an incentive program? Is there a bonus for bringing people in? Because hey, if I love working here and I'm motivated to bring somebody in and get them in there, I want to bring in people that are like-minded for me, right? And if there's something else in it for me, great. Well, that checks the financial box. But I'm also bringing in people that I like to work with, and I already know what the company values and doesn't value in terms of that. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things I ask new clients is, do you have an employee referral program? And those are so successful because you have great people in your organization. Great people know great people. And if you have a good story to tell, like Jay said, then they want to work with their friends, right? It's all part of that fit. I think in terms of just very simply supply and demand, what we need to try to do is broaden that supply. Okay. So first it's identifying how you can broaden that supply, whether that be thinking about other types of workers and candidates, diverse candidates that you didn't think about before. Is it making the job different in terms of part-time or job sharing, that, you know, maybe a working or a stay-at-home mom whose kids are now finally back in school after the pandemic, maybe she has 3 or 4 hours a day. So trying to think about how we can change the positions that we have and increase that supply and who would be eligible to work in that position. Then you need to think about how do you get that information out there and make it more widespread. So how do you brand and market and get it out there? And you have to look at it from every different angle in this marketplace. It's not enough just to say, oh, well, I have an employer for a program, or I'm just going to go and post it. You have to have a strategy around what are all the different ways I'm going to tackle this and get this information out there, whether that's the referral program, putting it on Craigslist, posting it to social media, doing an open house in your organization and your manufacturing facility, going to job fairs, you know, sponsoring the local little league, getting involved in community days. I mean, you have to sit down and think about every different way that you can get your name out there and tell your story.
A lot more work than just putting a post up on Indeed. That's what I'm hearing.
100%.
Right.
Hey, Chris, we are a little over 12:45 right now, and I know we're coming to the end of this. I just wanted to give you a heads up there.
Okay. Bill, are there any other questions before I move on?
One more question here that I thought would be valuable tackling. It's what are employers doing today to make remote workers feel inclusive to the larger organization and team?
Tony, you're not a remote worker. I don't know that you have a fish in this race here. Jay and Karen, you guys want to chime in on that real quick? Jay, I'll go to you first.
As I was preparing for this seminar today, I was doing a lot of reading. One of these things with technology is information is instantly available. And I saw many people who have remote workers are asking them to come in for whether it's hours or several days, once a month, once a quarter, or something like that. And it really is enculturation. It's coming in and meeting face to face with the team. So having those team meetings, I think technology has helped with video conferencing that we have. It's easy, as we're doing here with this call. You can take time during calls to talk about what people like, what people feel, to give them time to get to know each other, to talk to each other, to understand what the company believes in. So using our time when we are talking with each other, not just to talk about business, but to add the interpersonal kind of stuff and the cultural kind of discussions, making the implicit explicit.
Great. Karen, you want to add on that at all?
Sure. I think just adding on just the technology piece in terms of Slack and team chats, and, you know, one of the things I know I have missed the most about being remote is just being able to walk down the hallway and say, hey, Chris, you know, I have this question, or, you know, what do you think about this? Or how was your weekend, or whatever it might be, right? And Slack and team chats, I think has been the most successful thing I've seen to try to bridge that gap, where you can just, you know, shoot off a real quick note to someone and get an answer.
Okay. Tony, you're back in the work environment. You're not working remotely. Are you seeing, is that a value thing for you? You know, is it, you can't do manufacturing work remotely, right? If you're in manufacturing, you're in operations, you're in a service industry, you know, working from home isn't an option. So the people that are on the call today that are dealing with that challenge where they can't offer remote things, is there anything you want to add that you think would be beneficial for the listeners to hear from your perspective of somebody who is going back to the workplace each day, who is, you know, has a choice, right? You have a choice. You're on the right side of the demand curve, right? You're You got 10 people trying to hire you. Anything you want to kind of summarize about what you want to tell us about what's important to you?
I don't know that there's much that I can add to that. I definitely, my personal opinion on, going and working in a facility versus, taking the option to work from home, doing something different. I don't really see it as an option. I don't, that style of working really doesn't interest me too much.
Okay.
Chris,
So
I want to come back and say with what Tony is saying, I encourage people to think of remote work because 52% of the workforce can't work remotely. It's a little more than the majority, but think of remote work not just as where you work, but when you work. Because adding flexibility to workers who can't work remotely can achieve a lot. To what degree can I provide flexibility, this balance of work life? People aren't looking anymore for a job. They're looking for what they're going to do with their life. And they want that balance in terms of that. To what degree can I add flexibility to my work schedules, to the work that people are doing? And that can go a long way in making up for what we can't gain by offering remote work. So I think Tony talked about flexibility, or Karen did earlier, a very, very important ingredient in the manufacturing workplace of today when we can't give remote work. To what degree can I provide flexibility?
I see a question came up here from somebody in the gallery, and I think it's important that maybe I tap in all three of you on this. The question is, how important is it for leaders to be directly involved in activities and operate in a manner that evidence and demonstrate culture, values, and real connection with employees? I think that's what I've heard all three of you say. But if we just want to circle back and tap in on that, start that with you, Tony. You mentioned it earlier. Your boss was out there, and he's not behind the desk. He's not on the 9th floor. He's out there with you. How important is that to you?
it's unbelievably important to have, your direct supervisor be somebody who is virtually unshakable. That puts a lot of, everyday work stress. How is the boss going to be today? This, and you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff when you have a superior who is consistent every day. That has been unbelievably huge for me. I don't even think that I have experienced that until my current position.
Okay.
So it's still a very new thing that I'm getting used to, but I can say that it is incredibly valuable when and if there's something in the future when I'd be considering a different option. That has risen pretty high on the top of the list of things that I would look for in a company.
Jay, in a minute or two, do you want to feed into this at all?
There's an interesting book I encourage people to read called The Leadership Challenge by James Kouzes and Barry Posner. For 40 years, they found that there's 5 things that exemplary leaders do. One of the 5, and the one that's talked about first, is called model the way. Great leaders are role models. They walk the talk. They live the values of the organization. When the organization is being talked about, they're not off on their sailboat. Okay?
Got it.
We want leaders we can believe in. We want leaders who behave consistent with what they want the organization to be. It is powerful. It has always been powerful. We want all leaders, not just the man or the woman at the top, but even my immediate supervisor. We want them to walk the talk. When I'm asked to stay and do later work, I don't want a boss who always leaves at 5.
Good point. And I think that's kind of what Tony's saying. And so to wrap it up here, Karen, I'd like you to weigh in on that, and then maybe segue into a little bit about how you and ECS help clients, kind of manage what we've been talking about today.
Sure. I can't add very much to what Tony and Jay said. I mean, I think they hit the nail on the head. I think if there's one thing that people take away from this webinar today, it is that you need to walk the talk. You need to be involved. You need to be that type of place that people want to work and feel valued. So there's much more to say about that. In terms of what we can do, I am super passionate about finding the right people and matching them to the right organization. And as I alluded to earlier, it's a lot more complex these days in terms of what organizations need to be doing to find that talent. So we can sit down and help organizations come up with what is your recruiting strategy. What do you want to do right away? Is there something, do you want to have sort of a tiered strategy? Love to do that. So we can certainly help you with that. And then in terms of, the retention, we've talked a lot about today, making sure that, your culture is, where it is, that your brand is how you want it to be. Do you have those career paths in place? Is there transparency around that? That's all work that we help our clients with all the time, and that I love to do.
And that recruiting piece is unique, right? The ECS model is unique from a lot of what most people have experienced in recruiting. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And what is unique about it is we have a different pricing model than a lot of other organizations out there that really resonate well with the middle market and the manufacturing groups.
Great. And so they can reach out to any of us, you, me, Jason, and get more information on that if they're interested.
Absolutely.
Bill, is there anything else? I know we want to watch our time. Anything else that
we are good to go?
All right. Well, listen, great time. I really want to thank Tony. Thank you very much. Jay, really appreciate your input. Thank you guys both. And Karen, of course, always valuable to have your input. And I appreciate everyone's time today. Hope the audience found it valuable as well.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, everybody. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.